You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Fox City's Murder and Mayhem podcast. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
Gavin, we are back for the second time today.
We are.
Still doing Fox City's Murder and Mayhem.
Still doing Fox City's Murder and Mayhem and still not doing the death penalty one.
Yeah, not doing the episode that Gavin promised everybody.
Yeah, I did. And it totally just... For the listeners, the way we've been recording lately is we've been doing batches of two of the different podcasts we do. So it's been a little while since the Fox Cities, and
it just kind of lost track of where we were at. So.
I have it. It's done. So it should be next time. I don't even want to promise it because somehow it'll slip my mind again. But it's done. It's coming.
But for this episode, it looks like I'm just roughly looking at Gavin's notes that are in front of him, and it looks like we might have a Civil War story.
It is partially a Civil War story,
so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so because it had slipped my mind that I had that other episode that was written.
This one plays into the other one, or
no?
What? Okay,
no. So I was like, I need another episode, and I didn't have another episode that was far enough to where I was like, I should focus on this. Instead, I had a thing I had to write for my day job. So the thing you're going to hear now is a version of a thing I'm presenting tonight, at least tonight as we record this. By the time you hear this, it'll have been a month ago. But It's not really Murder and Mayhem. But I think there's enough interesting pieces that it was worth using here. So a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's just a biography or a history of a business that's, super niche. And I find it interesting, but it's not really podcast Murder and Mayhem material. This one, I think, has a few pieces that, if you're more interested in the history angles of how we do these, I think this one's going to really, some people are going to really like it.
So you got me excited because I like the history aspects of this stuff. So Gavin has turned me into an avid lover of local history. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I really like local history now. And the only reason I can stem to why I like it is because of you. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'll say either that or you're just getting old.
Yeah, maybe that's it too. But then wouldn't I like all history, not just local history?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I've got 6 pages here. It's actually up to 8 pages. So between the time I printed it and now, I've added 2 more pages. For this whole thing, for me to take all the stuff I have and put it into notes would probably take at least 80 pages. But I'm going to try to do this as abbreviated as possible. So the person we're going to talk about is a man named Colonel Henry Frambach, who is kind of a big deal, but nobody's ever heard of him.
Okay.
I should say nobody's ever heard of him, but he's largely unknown. His family was German. Apparently, his father was a teacher who taught languages. He taught 8 different languages, and his grandfather was a lawyer. I can't verify this. I assume it to be true because that's what they say, but I don't know. Henry, our guy, was born in New York in November 1840. At a young age, he sees tragedy. His mother dies when he's only 6. His father then brings the family from New York to Racine, Wisconsin, but then dies when Henry's only 14.
Oh, wow.
So by the time Henry, our character, is 14, both of his parents have died. Henry went to school at Mount Pleasant in Racine County in the winter and then worked in the summer as a farm assistant to raise money. He would earn $6 a month while working on the farm. I don't know if that's good or bad at this point in time. He also got into driving stagecoach. Now, I don't know where he picked this up, but in addition to farming, he really liked driving stagecoach. So in 1857, at age 17, he finds out that there's a group of people who really need a stagecoach driver. And those people are the Mormons. The Mormons at this point in time are increasingly moving out west. They had been in New York, Illinois, St. Louis. They've been moved around. When they were in Illinois, there was a riot and they killed the leader of the Mormons. When they were in St. Louis, the governor of Missouri actually issued an execution order saying kill Mormons on sight.
Wow.
So they were not well welcomed in many places. And they were looking to move west. So Henry Frambach says, hey, guess what? I'm really good at stagecoach. So at age 17, he makes it a business to run what was called wagon trains out west to Utah. So he ends up making a small fortune getting the Mormons out west.
Now, just from a history perspective, did we have a large community of Mormons?
What's we?
Like Wisconsin?
Not really.
No, so this is a very isolated thing that he was partaking in here. There was probably one small community that was moved out.
I'm not sure where because I don't think he's moving them out of Racine County.
Okay.
I think he sees an opportunity and he kind of goes where they are.
Gotcha.
After he's done this for a bit, he settles at St. Louis briefly, where he purchases a flatboat to transport freight up and down the Mississippi River. But then the Civil War breaks out. He feels a strong sense of patriotism, and he joins Company G of the 61st Illinois Infantry. He goes in there, and he's really nobody, like in military terms. I think he's already pretty cool, but in military terms, he's just a lowly guy. They have a few battles, and they have a battle called the Battle of Shiloh. Now, I don't know much about the Civil War, so if you do, listener, and you're like, oh yeah, Battle of Shiloh, great, good for you. I don't know a lot about a lot of the battles, so not really going to talk about that. But what he does at that is, in the Civil War era, there'd be a guy in the front who would have like the flag, either the American flag or the flag for that particular group of soldiers.
Gotcha.
He goes down. His horse goes down. And Frambach decides, well, we can't not have the flag. So he runs out there, gets the flag, and brings it back.
Okay.
And the general who's overseeing this, a guy named General Mason Brayman, says, this guy has got some balls.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's out there and running, like, you shouldn't run head on into like oncoming fire. Not smart, but very brave.
Mm-hmm.
So he calls him aside and says, hey, I want you to join me back to headquarters. Takes him back to headquarters, and he joins what at that time was called the Secret Service.
Okay.
And the Secret Service was like the military spy group. Sometimes he's called a spy, and sometimes he's called a scout.
Okay.
There might be a difference. I'm not sure. But for our purposes, it doesn't really matter which term you want to use. And then he goes on some crazy adventures.
Okay.
They give him paperwork that, like, they forge paperwork that gives him a false name and says that he was a Confederate soldier who was caught and imprisoned, and they've pardoned him, or at least like paroled him from the local military jail.
Okay.
And then they send him into the South with this paperwork to try to go ahead and spy and scout ahead. So Frambach goes down into the Jackson, Mississippi area, and he mingles with the other Confederate soldiers and gets intelligence. And they think that they're not convinced that he's real, but he gets brought before one of their generals and shows them, like, look, I got this paperwork. Like, I'm a Confederate. And that general, like, goes along with it and was like, oh, yeah, okay, great. And so he's able to, like, mingle among them and get all kinds of information on what the upcoming strategies are. And then he goes back and reports on it. A second time he does this, he gets a couple men with him. They all put on Confederate uniforms and they brand their horses CS for Confederate States.
Okay.
And they ride down, and as a group, they do this same thing, where they're like, "Oh yeah, we're some Confederates who were let loose, and we got back, man." And they'll be like, they'll give them false information on where the Union is. Be like, "Oh yeah, we were here, here, and here," which is like nowhere near where the Union actually is. Mm-hmm. And they'd get information, and they'd come back. This is how he got to be a colonel. He rises to the rank of colonel by doing this not bizarre, but he's doing this spy stuff where there's a few stories where, I don't know how true it is. I'm assuming again that it's true, but these are all stories he's telling years after the fact. There's really no way to verify them, but I'm assuming they're true. There's numerous times where they start being like, something about this guy is not right, and he has to keep trying to get out of there before they get him, because he doesn't have the Southern accent, and he knows certain things, but he doesn't know other things that he probably should know if he's Southern.
Yeah, he probably knows a bunch of really obvious things that a person from the South should know, but then also littler things that a person from the South should know. He has no idea because they wouldn't know to teach him that, maybe.
Right.
In going in. I could see how this would be. Going undercover would be an extremely challenging thing to do. Yeah,
it's not as simple as just putting on a different uniform. The culture is significantly different. It is kind of like going in a foreign country.
Yeah.
So, makes it out of there. Spoiler, North wins the war. Gets out of the war. He briefly is in business in St. Louis, where he was before. He marries a woman in Springfield, Illinois, and then he gets a message from his brother, John. His brother, John, is in Kaukauna, Wisconsin.
Okay. Great place to be.
Great place to be. Brother John had a flour mill in the 1860s. The flour mill burned down from a lightning storm, and he wanted to start it back up, but he needed a little extra help, and he needed a little extra money. So he gets a hold of our guy, Henry Frambach. He says, "Hey, Henry, you want to come up and get in the mill business with me?" Henry's like, "Sure." So he comes up, and he helps rebuild the mill, and they created what was called the Eagle Mill. And the Eagle Mill was built in 1872. The Eagle Mill is the current building that the library is in.
Okay.
So they do that, and there's the way the paper used to be made, it's so weird. What is paper made out of?
Wood,
yeah.
Pulp.
Right, exactly. That's what you think. But up to this time, they're making paper out of old rags and straw, and they're doing all kinds of weird things to make paper. Pulp is just kind of starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Frambach gets into the pulp business, and he makes a fortune off of this. He invents a thing called the Frambach grinder, which is I don't know the technology involved here, but apparently is just a huge step up from what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly all the mills have to get these grinders to grind up the pulp and that they're going to use for paper. So Frambach, in addition to whatever he makes in business, so Frambach has got this grinder, and he's doing good. He's got his business, but he's also making money off the grinder because all these other mills are now need grinders too. So he's running the Eagle Mill. He starts a second mill in Menasha. He's doing that for a while. He is a busy guy.
Sounds like a freakishly successful guy too at this point in time.
Super successful. He kind of gets in the buying and selling business. He'll buy mills and then sell mills, and then he'll buy them back again. And it's he's treating them almost like stocks. He'll sell his interest in the Eagle Mill, but then he'll come back later and he'll buy it back. So it's be like, I made this successful mill, now I'll sell it. Oh, you guys didn't run it so well, now I can buy it back.
Fix it again and then sell it at a premium.
Yeah.
Probably at a later date.
Builds a second mill next to the Eagle Mill that he calls the Badger Mill. So that works out really well. Apparently at that time, the Badger Mill is the biggest mill anywhere. I don't know if that's true, but that's like they promoted it. It's like, it's the biggest mill ever.
So is the Badger Mill, is the building that would have been the Badger Mill still there and used by the current mill, or has that long gone?
I don't believe the Badger Mill is there.
Okay.
Now, that's a great question, because this is a problem I run into all the time. I know that the building that is there now is the Eagle Mill, but the problem that we run into is between 1872 and whenever the mill ultimately shut down, there were numerous expansions, and there were multiple times that there were fires, and the building is stone, so the stone has never disappeared. The stone is the same as it always was, but the parts that were wood or whatever would burn, and then they'd rebuild. So trying to recognize what's what today compared to then is almost impossible, other than like the stone.
Gotcha.
Like the stone, I mean, that's not going anywhere. but beyond that, like, it's, if you saw a picture of the Eagle Mill in 1872 and you saw a picture of it today, there's parts that are recognizable, but it's almost like in a completely different building.
Really?
He gets active in banking. He's one of the original people who starts the Bank of Kaukauna. He then leaves that and starts his own bank, which becomes the First National Bank of Kaukauna. And these First National banks are wild places. And I do not know for the life of me how they ran these things. So First National banks had the ability to print money.
Okay.
Somebody somewhere, the Secretary of the Treasury, I'm assuming, had to have some sort of authority to make sure that these places were printing off the correct amount of money. How they oversaw that, I don't know. Because, now today we've got certain U.S. mints and whatever. There's a certain number of them, and they print off the money. But here, like, a First National Bank could print off a certain amount of money, and they were all over the place.
What a hard thing to regulate, man.
That's like, I have no idea. And you can find this online. I've never seen one in real life, but you can find like the bills that were printed off at the First National Bank in Kaukauna, because the bills will look like normal money, but it'll say Kaukauna on them. And in the signature spot where normally it's like the Secretary of the Treasury, it's the president of the bank that signed it. So you can find like actual money that's like says, Kaukauna money. And but I don't know how you regulate that. Like, what's to stop the head of the bank from being like, well, I'll just print off an extra $1,000. Like, who could possibly stop him? So,
and the curious thing about that too is, because I think about in this era, Kaukana's tiny.
It is.
So does every city just have one of these First National banks that can print off money? Like, would Appleton have had one? Because it seems more reasonable to me that, like, you would put that bank in Green Bay, Appleton, not Kaukauna.
I don't know enough about banking to give you a good answer to that.
Okay.
I mean, First National banks were not uncommon, but I don't know what hoops you had to jump through to get one.
Okay.
I mean, anybody could open a bank. Like, you'd have to get approved to open a bank, but it's fairly simple. But a First National Bank where you actually have, you're not just, having savings accounts for people, but you're actually involved in the money process. I don't know what you had to go through to get that done.
I bet you it was creep. If you saw the requirements, I bet you'd be like, that's it. Because I bet you it was probably pretty freakishly loose. I mean, it might have seemed like really strict at that time, but when we look at it now, we'd be like, that's what you had to do. That's
yeah. So, okay, 1885 comes by. So now, I mean, we're 20 years removed from the Civil War now. 1885 comes by, and a vote is held in Kaukauna to decide if Kaukauna is going to join together as a city. Up till 1885, north of the river was Kaukauna and south of the river was called Ledyard. And they had a vote about whether they would join together or not. Again, spoilers, the vote went through. So sorry for those of you who don't know, but both sides of the river are the same city.
And Ledyard just doesn't exist anymore.
It just does not exist anymore. And this was contentious because the majority of the people on the south side did not want to, and the majority of the people on the north side did want to join together, but there were more people on the north side. So the yeses outnumbered the noes, even though the people who got eaten up, majority did not want it.
I would be curious to know what they were opposed to. I mean, I feel like that would just be, I guess, though you're saying give up your city, basically, and become our city.
They're kind of like two different places. Like, I don't want to oversimplify it, but the north side was largely Republican and the south side was largely Democratic. And the south side at this point in time was primarily like a railroad town. Mm-hmm. The guy who oversaw it was also like a big railroad guy. And most of the families who lived there worked on the railroad or, ran a business that catered to railroad employees. So what the difference is between Republican and Democrat in 1885, like, I don't know. But whatever that difference is, the railroad guys really didn't want to be affiliated with the guys on the north side. Mm. So
it's kind of interesting, too, that you say that one side was Democratic and one side was Republican, because I remember back, I think it was the episode where like the county executor or something. Mm-hmm. There were two dudes that were fighting over the position and they were taking ads out in newspapers and stuff against each other.
Yes.
But I think in that episode you talked about how there was the Kaukauna Times, and then at one point in time there was also like a very Democratic paper.
Yes,
and that
correct.
would probably explain why that existed, because one whole side of the town was all Democrat.
Correct. Yep.
So.
Yep. And that's, I'm not going to get into super detail about that because I'm trying to move this story along, but that actually factors in here because the Frambach, his brother-in-law is Charlie Rott, and Charlie Rott owns the Kaukauna Times,
okay,
which is the Republican newspaper,
right?
And the Kaukauna Sun is the Democratic newspaper. Mm-hmm. So when the two sides vote and they join together, well, now they needed a mayor, and Frambach runs for mayor, and he's elected. He's the first mayor of Kaukauna. Doesn't hurt him that his brother-in-law runs the newspaper. So very, very nice things said about him. I mean, not that he shouldn't. Like, he's super well-known, successful businessman, war hero. Like, he's clearly qualified to be the mayor.
You're not getting a lot of negative from this guy at this point.
Even the people who would run against him were generally nice to him. Like, he's not a villain. But it does help. And the guy who would have run against him and had a chance was John Hickey, and John Hickey was the guy who kind of ran things on the south side. But he was, I don't know what terms you would use in the 1880s, but in today's language, John Hickey was butthurt. And,
okay.
and he's like, I'm not even running for mayor.
Because he was so mad that they lost this vote.
He's like, I ran a town and you took it away from me. I don't even want to be mayor of your stinky town.
Well, too bad.
So Frambach, the Republican, wins. Again, he probably would have won anyway, but the biggest Democratic challenger didn't even want to run. He's like, screw you guys. Frambach is only mayor for one term. He's a very brief mayor. Doesn't do a whole lot that's like really notable, but he is important in that, first of all, he's the first mayor, but he does kind of set things up because although the mayor doesn't have a lot of big responsibilities, he does appoint the different commissions and the different groups and things like that. So everybody who gets the job after him is still kind of using the framework he sets up. So there's some level of importance. But Frambach's primarily, he's focused on his paper mills. Like, mayor is just kind of a part-time gig for him. He's becomes the president of the first humane society in the area, which is really kind of weird. And the Humane Society is not what you think the Humane Society is.
Okay, so what is the Humane Society?
The Humane Society, well, it might be what you think it is. They look after two things. One, cruelty to animals, which is probably what you think, and also cruelty to children.
Wow, okay.
And which I don't, generally now, yeah, Humane Society is like, treat your dogs and cats good. But back then, a lot of it more was like concerned about child welfare. And it's weird because there's stories where they have to do an intervention with one family called the Glaff family. I don't know who they were. But according to the newspaper, they were, quote, too violent in the way they governed their children. They didn't specify what they were doing. I don't know. But they were too violent to their children. In another case, they had to intervene because parents were using their children the same way you would use horses, and they strapped plows onto their kids and ran the kids through the farm field with the plows attached to them.
Wow.
And the Humane Society is like, yeah, don't. I mean, kids can work the farm, but don't do that.
So basically, it's just the Humane Society was also Child Protective Services, more.
And I think they were concerned about animals too, but it seems like in this era it was more children than animals, because animals didn't. I don't want to say they didn't have the same rights as people. Well, they don't.
I mean,
not as people. I don't mean as people. That came out wrong. But back in those days, like if somebody shot a stray dog or stray cat, like, you weren't seen as cruel for doing it. 1892 comes by, and for that year, there's the mayor election again, and they say, hey, we want Frambach back again. And he's like, no, I don't want that. Then in the fall, the election for Congress comes around, and they say, hey, you didn't want to be mayor. How about being our congressman? And he's like, no. I don't want that. But then when the convention happened in the fall, they picked him anyway.
Really?
and he's like, okay. So he spends a couple months running for Congress. It's kind of a weird thing. He's like, they pretty much know he's going to lose.
Okay.
Because in 1892, it was expected that the Democrats were going to sweep the elections pretty much nationwide. So the Republicans were on the losing end of things. But he ran, he gave it a shot. The guy he ran against was a guy named Lyman Barnes, who was an attorney out of Appleton, had done a number of business deals with Frambach. They were friends. So like it was a friendly campaign. They weren't mean to each other at all. The weirdest thing about it was one newspaper accused Frambach of faking being German. They were like, he's got a German last name, but that's only because he was adopted. He's not German at all. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, my parents are from, he's like, I was an orphan, but my parents were from Germany.
It's a good thing that politics doesn't work like that anymore, right?
But it was so weird. Like, and it's really bizarre because so this 1892, another 20 years from this point, like, you would not want to be German. Like, because once World War I is coming around, like, being German is like a real negative thing. Less so in Wisconsin because it's such a German state, but generally speaking, there was a lot of anti-German sentiment in World War I. But it's funny that in 1892, if you're running for Congress in Wisconsin, it's like, oh, so you got a German name, huh? Are you really German? Like, what a weird thing to go after a guy for. He does lose. He takes part in the World's Fair in 1893, the famous Chicago World's Fair in 1893, where he sets up a mini paper making machine and
cool.
And shows how paper is made. He gets involved in other paper mills in Niagara, Wisconsin, Niagara. Well, maybe it's Wisconsin. It's on the border between.
It is Wisconsin.
Okay,
it's right by Iron Mountain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sets up a mill there called Quinnipiac. The last really interesting thing that he does is he gets involved in gold mining in Colorado. Just one day, apparently, like, paper mills just aren't fun anymore. And he picks up and moves with his kids. Like, his kids are grown at this point, but they still move out to help him. And they move out to Colorado, and they spend a few years out there gold mining.
Do we know, do they find anything?
They probably find something, but they come back. So I'm guessing it wasn't that great.
Yeah.
But they spend about 2 or 3 years out there gold mining. So this guy, you know, like I said, not super well known. Like, when you think of people who were involved in the paper mills in the Fox cities, Frambach is not like one of the first names you're going to think of. But you're going to think Oscar Tillmany. You're going to think Kimberly Clark. You're going to think like that. Frambach doesn't usually come to mind right away. But for me, like, this guy's got some stuff going on.
What a life to have lived, right?
Yeah.
Like,
in addition to how huge he is in the paper industry, which that in itself makes him important, before he even started that, he had an entire Civil War spy career and the Mormon wagon trains and all that. Like, this guy is fascinating. Murder and Mayhem, no, but definitely some fascinating. Probably some Murder and Mayhem in the Civil War, if you want to be, stretch it a little. But an interesting guy for sure.
It almost sounds like this guy is kind of the paper mill tycoon before paper mills became a thing. If that makes sense, like
he's around the same time.
But I mean, obviously he's prior to Oscar Tillmany, right?
He is, yes.
Yeah. So like where I'm going with this is like he was running the paper mills before people even acknowledged paper mills. Like Tillmany's is the paper mill that we all know.
Correct.
And he was doing it before Tillmany's even existed.
The only reason I push back on that is the Eagle Mill starts in 1872. And 1872 is the same year that Kimberly Clark starts. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's not just him.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like there's other paper mills in the area. But yes, you are correct. We still, even though it's changed names a dozen times since then, we still call it the Tillmany Mill. But Oscar didn't come until a little bit later.
Mm. It's just it's another great history story, and it's another just representation of, like, look at this. This guy is from Kaukauna, and look what he did,
Yeah.
Like, I think if you went to half the people in Kaukauna and said, do you think anybody from Kaukauna was ever a part of the World's Fair in Chicago? Mm-hmm. Most people would answer no to that, because why would somebody from Kaukauna be involved in it? But there we go. We know that they were.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's, like I said, this is from my day job, and that's what I really love, is finding these stories. There's another, I don't know if I've mentioned it on here before or not, but there's a woman called Sophia Strathern, and I absolutely love her. No one has ever heard of her. I think I'm the only person who knows who she is, but she was involved in, like, trying to get women to vote. She lived in Kaukauna pretty much her whole adult life, was active in trying to get women to vote. She also was really active in Veterans Affairs. She was the #1 first donator to get, like, the Veterans Home in King, like by Wapaka.
Okay.
Like, so she was, like, a key piece in getting that started. And, like, no one's ever heard of her. And I'm like, we've got all these interesting figures who, get overshadowed by other people who are just these small town people that did huge things. Right.
And I think it would be it's such an important thing for people, for us who live in these towns, to realize that, the effect that our town had on society. Because when you start hearing these stories, you realize, wow, people have done things here that are pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, and I would say things like, it helps it helps bring a story home. I've said this, again, probably on the podcast before. I've told people many times, because every time someone asks how I got into history, I'll tell them. I said I got into history because I got into family history through my grandmother. And as part of doing family history, it helps flesh out who the people are when you know the history surrounding what's going on. And then history becomes more interesting when you can make a direct connection between something in your family and that event. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think you could extend that further. And even here, when we learned Civil War, and I often use this as the example, when we learned Civil War in 8th grade, I thought it was super boring. Mm-hmm. Like, some people probably love it. And if you do, great. But to me, learning all the generals and the battles and stuff, I don't care. And I still don't care. Mm-hmm. But it might have been interesting to maybe be like, hey, here's a guy who is like the founder of Kaukauna, who was a spy in the Civil War, and here's some of the things that he did. Yeah.
Oh, and I 100% agree with you, man. Like, how much more powerful would that make that lesson?
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe it's just because, again, like I said, Gavin, you've worn off on me, and like local history is a thing I'm interested in now. And maybe that's all it is that we're both interested, so we find this captivating. But I think everybody, I can't imagine why you wouldn't find it more captivating when it's somebody that you at least have something you can connect to.
I think it helps to have that connection because, like, I can recognize, like, oh, Gettysburg, it's like one of the bloodiest battles in the Civil War, big deal, not big deal sarcastic, but like literally a big deal. And again, if you're into military history, like, you probably love talking about the strategies involved. To me, I'd have to be like, how does Gettysburg affect me? Mm-hmm. And I couldn't tell you. I could not give you a good answer to that because I don't have like a direct being like, man, my grandfather was awesome at Gettysburg. Like, I can't tell you that story. Yeah. So I know it's an important event, but how does it affect my life?
Right. And what's my connection to it? Like, why do I care about it?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So you got anything else for this one, or should we wrap this one up?
We're probably really long on time already.
We are pretty long, but that's okay.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. So like I said, I'll be presenting this evening, which by the time people hear it will have been long past. But if this kind of thing is interesting to you, let me know. I can send you the notes. I could do more history stories in the future if people want to hear them. So
I will put a vote out there for that. I like hearing them. So if anybody else also likes hearing them, MilwaukeeMafia@gmail.com.
Yeah, MilwaukeeMafia@gmail.com.
So with that, we will wrap this episode up. You got anything else? You got any? Well, we're coming back with the episode from that Gavin has forgotten about.
Yeah, hopefully that's next. It's like it's written, it's ready. It's just have to remember that I have it.
We will probably do 2 Patreon episodes the next time we record. So it all comes down to Gavin remembering after that next week that he has to bring that one to record.
Yeah.
But we will see everybody back in 2 weeks on the next episode. And thanks for tuning in and for the support of the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.